I won $480 million lottery, got fired the same day, lost everything, or so they thought. I never thought a $5 bill would ruin my life. But here we are. Let me back up. My name is Roy Miller, and for the past 5 years, I have been slowly drowning in the wreckage of my father's dream. The dream had a name, Miller Brothers Construction. Emphasis on brothers. Plural. My dad and his younger brother Frank built that company from nothing back in the 80s, framing houses in the Philadelphia suburbs when the city still made things, when you could earn an honest living with your hands and a good work ethic. Dad was the brains. Frank was the smile. That is how Mom always put it, and she was not wrong. Dad could look at a blueprint and see problems before the first nail got hammered. He understood load-bearing walls, soil compaction, the way water moves through a foundation. Frank understood golf schedules, 3 martini lunches, and which city councilman needed tickets to the Eagles game. They were a team, a good one. Then Dad died. Heart attack, 58 years old. Dropped dead in the parking lot of a Wawa at 6 in the morning. Coffee in one hand, manila folder full of contracts in the other. The doctor said it was fast. Painless. I am sure that was supposed to make me feel better. It did not. What it did do was leave a vacuum. And Frank, God bless him, filled that vacuum the way sewage fills a broken pipe. Fast, thorough, and with a smell you cannot quite wash off. Within 6 months, Mom was out. Frank bought her out, or squeezed her out, depending on who you ask. The lawyers made it sound clean. Partnership dissolution. Fair market value. All very professional. But I knew the truth. Frank wanted the kingdom to himself, and Mom was too tired, too grief-stricken, to fight him. Me? I stayed. I told myself it was because someone had to keep the company running. Someone had to make sure the job got finished. The clients got called back. The payroll did not bounce. Dad built this place with his bare hands, and I was not about to let it collapse just because his brother was a parasite in a polo shirt. But if I am being honest, and I guess that is the whole point of this confession, I stayed because I did not know what else to do. Miller and Sons Construction was the only thing I had left of my father. Walking away felt like letting him die a second time. So I stayed, and I worked, and I watched Frank and his 2 sons, my cousins Rick and Todd, bleed the company dry one expense account at a time. Picture this. It is a Friday afternoon in late October. The kind of gray, damp Friday where the sky looks like wet concrete and the wind cuts through your jacket like a razor. I am sitting at my desk in the main office, which is really just a converted warehouse space with some drywall partitions and fluorescent lights that hum like angry bees. My desk is covered in paperwork. Estimates for a kitchen remodel in Fishtown. Permits for a roof replacement in Manayunk. An angry email from a client whose bathroom tile got delivered in the wrong color. I am juggling. Always juggling. Through the thin walls, I can hear laughter. Loud, braying laughter. The kind that comes from people who have had too much to drink and not enough to worry about. I glance at the clock. 2:15 in the afternoon. I stand up, stretch my back, which always aches these days, and walk over to Frank's office. The door is half open. Inside, Frank is leaning back in his leather chair, feet up on the desk, a tumbler of Johnny Walker Black in his hand. Rick and Todd are sprawled on the couch, ties loosened, faces flushed. They are watching some golf tournament on the flat-screen TV that Frank installed last year. Company expense, of course. Nobody notices me standing there. Frank is talking about his handicap. Todd is laughing about some joke I did not hear. Rick is scrolling through his phone, probably texting his girlfriend. None of them are working. None of them ever work. I clear my throat. Frank glances over, annoyed. He waves me off like I am a fly, buzzing near his drink. Go back to your desk, Roy. We are in a meeting. A meeting. Right. I do not argue. There is no point. I have learned that over the years. You cannot argue with people who think the world owes them something just for showing up. I go back to my desk. I answer 3 emails. I call a supplier about a lumber order. I update a spreadsheet that nobody but me will ever look at. The fluorescent lights hum. The office smells like old coffee, damp cardboard, and something faintly chemical from the cleaning supplies stored in the back. There's a water stain on the ceiling tile above my desk, shaped like a kidney bean. I have been staring at that stain for 5 years. I think about my dad. I think about the photo on the wall in the lobby. It is black and white, taken sometime in the early 90s. Dad and Frank, arms around each other, standing in front of a house they just finished. They are smiling. They look like brothers. They look like partners. I wonder when that changed. Or maybe it was always a lie, and I was just too young to see it. At 5 o'clock, the office starts to empty. The secretary, Karen, a 60-something woman who has been with the company since before I was born, packs up her purse and heads out. A couple of the field guys come in to drop off timesheets and grab their checks. By 5:30, it is just me, Frank, Rick, and Todd. Frank wanders out his office, still holding his drink. He is a big man, my uncle. Not fat, exactly, but thick. The kind of thick that comes from decades of steak dinners and bourbon nightcaps. His hair is silver now, slicked back with too much gel. He is wearing a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my mortgage payment. He looks at me. Roy, you still here? I gesture at the pile of paperwork on my desk. Someone has to finish these estimates. Frank chuckles. Always the martyr. Huh? Rick and Todd emerge from the office behind him. They are younger than me. Rick is 34, Todd is 31. They both have that soft, overfed look of men who have never done a hard day's work in their lives. They got their jobs at Miller and Sons the old-fashioned way. Nepotism. Rick stretches, yawns. Powerball is up to $480 million tonight. Todd whistles. $480 million. Can you imagine? Frank grins. Hell, I would buy an island. Fire all you losers. They laugh. I do not. Frank walks over to my desk. He pulls a crumpled $5 bill from his pocket and slaps it down on top of my keyboard. Office pool, Roy. You in? This is a tradition, I guess. Every time the Powerball jackpot gets big, Frank organizes a pool. Everyone throws in $5. We buy a bunch of quick pick tickets, and we all pretend we're going to win. We never do, but it is easier to go along than to make waves. I reach for my wallet, pull out a 5, and toss it on top of Frank's. Rick adds his. Todd adds his. Frank counts the bills. 4 5s. $20 total. He looks at me. Roy, you're heading home anyway, right? Swing by the 7-Eleven and grab the tickets. 10 lines, quick pick. I nod. Sure. Frank claps me on the shoulder. His hand is heavy. It feels like a threat disguised as affection. Good man, Roy. Good man. He walks back toward his office, Rick and Todd trailing behind him like remmers following a shark. The door closes. I sit there for a moment, staring at the $20 on my desk. 4 crumpled $5 bills. My uncle's money. My cousin's money. My money. I fold them up and shove them in my pocket. The 7-Eleven is 3 blocks from the office, wedged between a check cashing place and a pizza joint that always smells like burnt garlic. I park my car, a 14-year-old Toyota Camry, with a dent in the passenger door and a check engine light that has been on since 2019, and head inside. The store is bright, too bright, the kind of fluorescent glare that makes everything look slightly unreal. There's a kid behind the counter, maybe 19, wearing a red vest and a name tag that says Deshaun. He is scrolling through his phone. I grab a coffee from the self-serve station. It tastes like hot cardboard, but it is warm, and that is enough. I walk up to the counter. Deshaun looks up. Help you? I pull out the $20. 10 lines, quick pick. Powerball. Deshaun nods. He punches something into the lottery terminal. The machine beeps and whirs. It spits out a long ticket, maybe 8 inches, covered in rows of numbers. He tears it off and hands it to me along with a receipt. I fold the ticket carefully and slip it into my jacket pocket. And then I hesitate. I do not know why I do what I do next. Maybe it is the weight of the day pressing down on me. Maybe it is the thought of going home to a house that needs a new roof, a mortgage that is always 2 months away from default, a wife who works 2 jobs just to keep us afloat. Maybe it is the memory of my dad, who used to play the lottery every Friday with numbers that meant something to him. Or maybe I am just tired. I look at Deshaun. 1 more, separate ticket. He raises an eyebrow. Quick pick? I shake my head. No, I will pick the numbers. I recite them from memory. The numbers I have carried in my head for years. 4, 12, 18, 22, 30. Powerball 16. Deshaun punches them in. The machine beeps again. A smaller ticket prints out. He hands it to me with another receipt. $2. I pull out my wallet. My debit card. Blue. Wells Fargo. The logo is worn from being swiped too many times. I hand it to him. He swipes it. The card reader beeps. I take the card back. I take the small ticket. I take the receipt. For a moment, I just stand there, holding both tickets. The long one from the pool. The short one that is mine. 2 pieces of paper. 2 chances. One bought with other people's money. One bought with mine. I shove them both into my jacket pocket, grab my coffee, and walk out. The air outside is cold. It smells like rain and exhaust fumes. I get back in my Camry. The engine coughs when I turn the key, but it starts. It always starts. Eventually, I drive back to the office. The parking lot is almost empty now. Just my car, Frank's Mercedes, and Rick's pickup truck. The lights in the office are still on, but the building looks tired. The sign out front, Miller & Son Construction, is missing the O in Sons. It has been missing for 2 years. I park. I grab my coffee. I head inside. Karen's desk is empty. My desk is exactly how I left it, covered in paperwork. I pull the 2 lottery tickets out of my jacket pocket and smooth them out on the desk. The long one, the short one. I need to keep them somewhere safe until the drawing tomorrow night. I reach for the blue folder on the corner of my desk. It is a heavy-duty folder, the kind with a label window on the front. The label says contracts, Monday in my handwriting. I use it for paperwork that needs to get filed first thing Monday morning. I slide both tickets into the folder. The long one, the short one, both receipts. I close the folder. I set it on the desk. My phone buzzes in my pocket. I pull it out. Sarah, my wife. I answer. Hey. Her voice is frantic. Roy, you need to come home. Now, what is wrong? The pipe in the basement. It burst. There is water everywhere. I am standing in it. It is up to my ankles. My stomach drops. Did you shut off the main valve? I do not know where it is. I close my eyes. I take a breath. I will be there in 10 minutes. I hang up. I grab my keys. I grab my coffee. I head for the door. Behind me, on the desk, the blue folder sits under the dim fluorescent light. I do not think about it. I do not go back. I am already mentally running through the steps I need to take when I get home. Shut off the water. Assess the damage. Call a plumber. Figure out how much this is going to cost. Add it to the list of things we cannot afford. I push through the front door of the office. The cold air hits me. I jog across the parking lot to my Camry. I get in. I turn the key. The engine coughs. Sputters. Dies. I try again. It coughs. Sputters. Catches. Thank God. I throw it into reverse, back out of the space, and head toward the exit. Behind me, the office building grows smaller in my rearview mirror. The lights are still on. The door is unlocked. And on the desk, in the pool of yellow light from the desk lamp, the blue folder sits, waiting. I do not know it yet, but I just made the biggest mistake of my life. The folder is still there. Both tickets are inside, and I am gone. The Camry rattled down Roosevelt Boulevard. Every pothole sending a jolt through my spine. My phone was wedged between my shoulder and ear as Sarah talked me through what she was seeing. Water. Everywhere. Coming from the old copper pipe that ran behind the water heater. I told her to stay calm. I told her I would be there in 5 minutes. I lied. It took me 12. When I pulled into our driveway, Sarah was standing on the front porch in her work scrubs, arms crossed, face pale. She works at a nursing home in Northeast Philly. Night shifts mostly. She had just gotten home when the pipe let go. I did not even turn off the engine properly. Just threw it in park and ran inside. The basement was a lake. Not ankle deep, like Sarah said. calf deep, cold, murky water that smelled like rust and mildew, and every bad decision I ever made. The water heater was hissing like a dying animal. I waded through the mess, found the main shut-off valve behind a stack of cardboard boxes that were now disintegrating into pulp, and cranked it closed. The hissing stopped. The silence was worse. I stood there in the dark, freezing water soaking through my work boots, and I wanted to scream, or cry, or both, but I did not have time for that. I spent the rest of Friday night, and all of Saturday dealing with the flood. I called a plumber. He could not come until Monday. Of course. So I did what I could myself. Rented a pump from Home Depot. Hauled out the soak boxes. Ripped up the sections of carpet that were already growing mold. Set up fans. Sarah helped when she could, but she had to work Saturday night. 12-hour shift. So it was just me, alone in that basement, pulling apart the remnants of our life. Old photo albums. Ruined. Christmas decorations. Ruined. The box of my dad's tools that I kept meaning to organize. Ruined. By Sunday afternoon, I was too exhausted to think. My back ached. My hands were raw. I smelled like a sewer. I collapsed on the couch and did not move for 6 hours. I did not think about the lottery tickets. I did not think about the office. I did not think about anything except how much I wanted to sleep for a year. Monday morning came too fast. I woke up at 5:30, the way I always do. My body does not know how to sleep in anymore. Sarah was already gone, her shift starting at 5. The house was quiet except for the hum of the fans, still running in the basement. I showered. I made coffee. I put on a clean shirt and jeans that still smelled faintly of mildew because everything in the house smelled like that now. I did not feel ready for the day, but I never do. I grabbed my keys and headed out to Camry. The engine coughed twice before it caught. The check engine light glowed like a little orange accusation. I drove to the office. Something was wrong the moment I pulled into the parking lot. There was a new car parked in front of the building. A black Escalade with tinted windows. It looked out of place, too clean, too expensive for a construction company that could barely make payroll. I parked in my usual spot and walked toward the front entrance. The door was locked. That was weird. Karen usually got in before me, unlocked everything, and started the coffee. But the lights were off. The building looked dead. I pulled out my key card, the one I had been using for 5 years. I swiped it. Red light. Denied. I tried again. Red light. I stood there for a moment, confused. Maybe the system was glitching. Maybe someone changed the codes over the weekend. I knocked on the glass door. Nothing. I knocked again, louder. A figure moved inside. A man I did not recognize. He was big, maybe 6'3", wearing a cheap suit and an earpiece. Security. Private security. He unlocked the door, but did not open it all the way. Just a crack. He looked at me like I was a solicitor. "Can I help you?" I blinked. "I work here. Roy Miller. I need to get inside." He shook his head. "You are going to need to wait in the lobby. Someone will be with you shortly." Wait in the lobby? This was my office. I built half the damn furniture in there. But something in the man's face told me arguing would be pointless. I stepped inside. The lobby was cold. The heat was not on. I sat down on one of the plastic chairs we kept for clients and stared at the wall, at the photo, Dad and Frank, arms around each other, smiling. I felt sick. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Finally, the door to the back offices opened. Frank walked out. He was wearing a suit, not the cashmere sweater. A suit, navy blue, tailored expensive. Behind him was a man I recognized. Bill Kowalski, the company lawyer. Gray hair, wire-rimmed glasses. The kind of guy who always looked like he was about to foreclose on someone's house. Frank did not smile. He did not say hello. He walked up to me and stopped about 3 feet away, like I was contagious. Bill handed him a folder. Frank opened it, glanced at the contents, and then held it out to me. I took it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Termination notice. My name at the top. A list of reasons. Incompetence. Inefficiency. Failure to meet company standards. The date at the top of the page was Friday. 3 p.m. I looked up at Frank. What is this? He folded his arms. We conducted an audit over the weekend. Roy, the numbers do not lie. You have been underperforming for months. We are letting you go. I stared at him. Underperforming? I am the only one in this company who does any actual work. Frank's expression did not change. That is your opinion. The board disagrees. The board? There was no board. It was Frank, Rick, and Todd. That was it. I felt something hot rising in my chest. Anger, confusion, betrayal. You are firing me? Frank nodded. Effective immediately. I stood up. You cannot do this. I have been here for 5 years. I kept this place running after Dad died. You would have gone bankrupt without me. Frank shrugged. And we appreciate your service. But it is time to move on. Bill has prepared a severance package. 2 weeks' pay. Sign the release form, and we will cut you a check today. 2 weeks. After 5 years. I wanted to punch him. I wanted to flip the chair over and walk out. But I just stood there, shaking. And then I remembered. The tickets. The lottery tickets. I had left them in the blue folder. On my desk. My heart dropped into my stomach. Wait. The folder. I left the folder on my desk Friday. I need to get it. Frank raised an eyebrow. What folder? The blue one. It has some personal paperwork in it. Frank glanced at Bill. Bill shook his head. All company property remains with the company. Roy, if there is something personal you need, you can submit a request in writing and we will review it. No, you do not understand. There are lottery tickets in that folder. From Friday, the office pool. Frank's face changed. Not much. Just a flicker of something. Recognition. Calculation. He smiled. It was not a kind smile. Oh, the lottery tickets. Right. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a crumpled $5 bill. He held it out to me. Here, your contribution to the pool. Since you were terminated on Friday at 3 p.m., you were no longer an employee at the time the tickets were purchased. Company policy. Only active employees can participate in company-sponsored activities. I stared at the $5 bill. You are joking. Frank shook his head. I do not joke about money. Roy, the tickets were purchased at 5:30, after work hours. It was not a company activity. It was just a group of people pooling money. Frank's smile widened. Purchased on company time, with company funds, by a former employee acting as an agent of the company. Legally, those tickets belonged to Miller and Sons Construction. Bill nodded, like this was all perfectly reasonable. I felt the room tilting. You are stealing from me. Frank pocketed the $5 bill. I am protecting company assets. Now, if you do not mind, Roy, we have a busy day ahead of us. Please sign the release form and vacate the premises. I did not move. I want my folder. Frank sighed. He turned to the security guard. Escort Mr. Miller out. Please. The guard stepped forward. I looked at Frank, at Bill, at the photo on the wall, and I realized something. They planned this. They timed this. They fired me on paper at 3 p.m. on Friday, so they could claim I was not part of the pool. They took the tickets from my desk. They were going to keep everything. I wanted to fight. I wanted to scream. But the security guard's hand was on my arm, and I was being walked toward the door. Frank called after me. Good luck, Roy. I am sure you will land on your feet. The door closed behind me. I stood in the parking lot, the cold October air biting at my face. I got in my Camry. I started the engine. I drove home. I did not cry. I did not scream. I just drove. Sarah was home when I got there. She took one look at my face and knew. She made me sit down. She made me tell her everything. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said the thing I was thinking, but could not say out loud. They stole from you. I nodded. She stood up and walked to the kitchen. She came back with her laptop. Let me check something. She opened the browser. Went to the Pennsylvania lottery website. The winning numbers were not posted yet. The drawing was Saturday night. Results usually went up Sunday, but sometimes it took until Monday evening if there was a jackpot winner. We waited. At 6 p.m., Sarah turned on the TV. Local news, Channel 6. The anchor was a woman in her 40s with too much hairspray and a smile that did not reach her eyes. She was talking about traffic, then weather, then a commercial break. When the broadcast came back, the anchor's smile got bigger. And now, a feel-good story from right here in Philadelphia. A local construction company has just claimed the $480 million Powerball jackpot. The screen cut to a shot outside Miller and Sons Construction. My office, my father's office. The camera panned to show Frank, Rick, and Todd standing in front of the building, holding champagne glasses and grinning like lottery winners. Because they were. The reporter, a young guy with gelled hair and a microphone, was asking Frank how it felt. Frank was eating it up. He talked about teamwork, about family, about the American dream. Rick and Todd laughed and clinked their glasses. The reporter asked what they were going to do with the money. Frank said something about reinvesting in the business, about taking care of their employees. I felt Sarah's hand on my arm. On the screen, the winning numbers appeared in big yellow digits. 04, 12, 18, 22, 30, Powerball 16. I stopped breathing. Those were not quick pick numbers. Those were my numbers. 04, my dad's birthday. April 4th. 12, the day Sarah and I got married. December 12th. 18, the age I was when Dad taught me how to frame a wall. 22, the number on my high school football jersey. 30, the street number of the first house I ever worked on. Powerball 16. Sarah's birthday. June 16th. Those were not random. Those were mine. I stood up so fast the coffee table tipped over. Sarah grabbed my arm. Roy, what is wrong? I could not speak. I just pointed at the TV. The numbers were still on the screen. Sarah looked. Her face went pale. Wait, those are your numbers. The ones you always talk about. I nodded. She looked at me. But you bought the pool tickets. 10 lines, quick pick. Random numbers. I shook my head. I bought 2 tickets, Sarah. One for the pool. One for me. Her eyes went wide. You bought a separate ticket? I nodded again. With my card. My Wells Fargo card. I picked the numbers myself. Sarah stared at the TV. At Frank. At Rick and Todd. At the champagne. She turned back to me. Roy, if those are your numbers, if you bought a separate ticket, then they did not win the pool. I felt my hand shaking. They won my ticket. We stood there in silence. The TV still playing, Frank's voice droning on about gratitude and hard work and second chances. I thought about the blue folder. I thought about both tickets inside. I thought about Frank finding them. Assuming they were both from the pool. Assuming they were both bought with the $20. He did not know. He had no idea. Sarah grabbed my shoulders. Roy, listen to me. If you bought that ticket separately, if you used your card, there is a record, a transaction, a receipt. I looked at her. My card, the bank statement. She nodded. We can prove it. We can prove that ticket was yours. I felt something shift inside me. Not hope, exactly. Something colder. Harder. Frank thought he was clever. He thought he had stolen a share of the pool winnings from me. 25% of $480 million. But he was wrong. He had not stolen a share. He had stolen everything. And I was going to prove it. I turned back to the TV. Frank was still smiling. Rick and Todd were still laughing. The reporter was wrapping up the segment, congratulating the lucky winners. I watched them. I watched my uncle, my cousins, my family, and I felt something I had never felt before. Not anger, not sadness, not even betrayal. Just cold, absolute clarity. They thought they had won. But the game was not over. Not even close. I looked at Sarah. I need a lawyer. Finding a lawyer turned out to be harder than I thought. Sarah and I started calling the next morning. Big firms first. The ones with glass offices downtown and names like Sterling and Associates or Berkowitz Legal Group. The receptionists were polite, professional. They took our information, said someone would call us back. Nobody called back. We tried mid-sized firms. Same story. One paralegal actually laughed when I explained the situation. He thought I was joking. When he realized I was not, he told me they had a conflict of interest. Apparently, Miller and Son Construction had used their firm for contract work 2 years ago. Conflict of interest. That was a phrase everyone kept using. What it really meant was nobody wanted to go up against Frank and his money. By Wednesday, we were scraping the bottom of the barrel. Lawyers with bus bench ads. Lawyers with websites that looked like they were built in 1998. Lawyers whose offices were in strip malls next to nail salons and pawn shops. Most of them wanted retainers we could not afford. $5,000, $10,000. One guy wanted $25,000 up front. I did not have $25, let alone $25,000. It was Sarah who found Sol Greenberg. She was scrolling through Google reviews at 2 a.m, unable to sleep, when she came across his listing. 3.5 stars. 42 reviews. Half of them said he was a bulldog. The other half said he was insane. His office address was above a laundromat in South Philly. Sarah looked at me. I think this is our guy. The next morning, we drove to his office. The laundromat was called Suds and Bubbles. It smelled like bleach and dryer sheets in desperation. We walked past rows of washing machines and a woman folding towels who did not look up, and we climbed a narrow staircase that creaked with every step. At the top was a door. Frosted glass. The words Sol Greenberg, attorney at law, were stenciled in peeling gold letters. I knocked. A voice from inside yelled for us to come in. The office was small. One room. A desk buried under stacks of files. A bookshelf crammed with law books that looked like they had not been opened since the Reagan administration. The walls were covered in framed certificates and photos. Sol shaking hands with people I did not recognize. Sol holding a trophy. Sol standing in front of a courthouse. Sol himself was sitting behind the desk, eating a bagel with cream cheese. He was maybe 60, bald except for a ring of white hair around his head, wearing a shirt with the sleeves rolled up and a tie that did not match. He looked like someone's disappointed uncle. He looked up at us and waved toward 2 chairs. Sit. Talk. Make it quick. I have a hearing at 11. I sat. Sarah sat. I told him everything. Sol listened. He did not take notes. He just chewed his bagel and watched me with sharp, dark eyes that did not miss anything. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. It squeaked. Let me get this straight. Your uncle fired you. Backdated the termination. Took your lottery tickets. Won $480 million. And you want to sue him? I nodded. Sol sighed. Kid, I appreciate the drama, but this is a he said, she said situation. You left the tickets on your desk. He found them. He claims they were part of the office pool. You claim one of them was yours, but you do not have the ticket. You do not have a receipt. It is your word against his, and he has the physical evidence. I started to argue, but Sarah grabbed my arm. She looked at Sol. What if we can prove Roy bought a separate ticket? Sol raised an eyebrow. How? I pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking. The screen was cracked from when I dropped it in the basement during the flood, but it still worked. I opened the Wells Fargo app, logged in, went to my transaction history, scrolled to Friday. I turned the phone toward Sol. There. Sol leaned forward, squinted at the screen. The list of transactions was short. A charge at the gas station Thursday morning. A charge at the grocery store Thursday night. And then Friday evening, a single charge. 7-Eleven, $2, 5:42 p.m. Sol stared at it. Then he looked up at me. You paid with your card? I nodded. The pool was cash. $20. 4 of us, $5 each. I gave that to the cashier first. Bought 10 lines, quick pick. Got a long ticket. Then, on impulse, I bought one more. Just for me. I used my card. I picked my own numbers. Sol sat back. And the numbers that won, they were not random. I shook my head. They were mine. My dad's birthday. My wedding day. Personal numbers. Not quick pick. Sol was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a man who just found a weapon he could use. Kid, do you know what this means? I shook my head. He tapped the phone screen. This is a digital trail. A time-stamped, bank-verified, impossible-to-fake digital trail. If you paid with your card, the bank has a record. The 7-Eleven has a record. The Lottery Commission has a record of which ticket was purchased at what time with what method of payment. And if the winning ticket was purchased with your card, it is your ticket. Period. End of story. Sarah leaned forward. So we can prove it? Soul nodded. We can prove it, but we need to move fast. If your uncle tries to claim the prize before we file an injunction, this gets a hell of a lot messier. I felt something I had not felt in days. Hope, how much is this going to cost? Soul waved a hand. We will talk about that later. Right now, I need you to go home. Print out every bank statement you have from the past month. Get copies of any receipts you still have, and meet me back here tomorrow morning at 8. I am going to draft an emergency motion to freeze the payout until we can sort this out in court. He stood up, held out his hand. I shook it. His grip was firm. Calloused. The grip of someone who had fought a lot of battles and won most of them. Welcome to the Thunderdome, kid. That night, I called Frank. Soul told me not to. He said it would only make things worse. But I did not care. I needed to hear Frank's voice. I needed to know if he had any idea what he had done. The phone rang 3 times before he picked up. His voice was smooth, confident. Roy, what a surprise. I did not waste time with pleasantries. I want my ticket back. Frank, the one I bought separately, with my own money. There was a pause. Then Frank laughed. Your ticket? Roy, there is no your ticket. There was an office pool. You were not part of it because you were not an employee. End of story. I clenched my jaw. I bought 2 tickets, Frank. One for the pool, one for me. I used my card. Another pause. Longer this time. Prove it. I will. Frank's voice hardened. Listen to me, Roy. You do not have the money to fight this. You do not have the resources. You are nobody. Go find another job. Move on with your life. He hung up. I sat there in the dark, holding the phone, feeling the anger burn through me like acid. Sarah came into the room. What did he say? I told her. She nodded slowly. Good. Now he knows you are serious. And when Soul files that injunction tomorrow, Frank is going to lose his mind. She was right. Soul filed a motion Thursday morning. By Thursday afternoon, the Lottery Commission had frozen the payout pending the outcome of the legal dispute. Frank's lawyer, some guy from Center City firm with a $60 haircut and a suit that cost more than my car, called Soul and threatened to bury us in paperwork. Soul laughed and hung up on him. Friday, we got notice that Frank wanted to schedule a deposition. He wanted to put me under oath, ask me questions, try to poke holes in my story. Soul grinned when he told me. He is panicking. This is good. When people panic, they make mistakes. The deposition was scheduled for the following Wednesday. The week leading up to it was the longest of my life. I could not sleep. I could not eat. I kept playing the scenario over and over in my head. What if I screwed up? What if I said something wrong? What if Frank's lawyers were better than Soul? Sarah kept me grounded. She made me shower, made me eat, made me go for walks around the block just to get out of the house. On Tuesday night, Soul came over to prep me. He sat at our kitchen table, drinking instant coffee that Sarah made, and he walked me through every question Frank's lawyers might ask. How many tickets did you buy? 2. One for the pool, one for me. How did you pay for them? The pool ticket with cash. My personal ticket with my Wells Fargo debit card. Why did you buy a personal ticket? Because I wanted to. It is not illegal. Over and over. Until I could answer in my sleep. Wednesday morning came. The deposition was held in a conference room at Frank's lawyer's office. Downtown, 20th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Sarah dropped me off. Soul was waiting in the lobby, holding a briefcase that looked older than I was. Ready? Not even a little. He clapped me on the shoulder. You will be fine. Just tell the truth. Do not get cute. Do not get angry. Let me do the heavy lifting. We rode the elevator in silence. The conference room was cold. The air conditioning was cranked too high. There was a long table in the center with chairs on either side. At one end was a court reporter, an older woman with gray hair and a stenography machine. Frank was already there, sitting next to his lawyer. He looked different, thinner. His face was pale. He did not look at me when I walked in. His lawyer stood up and introduced himself. Richard something. I did not catch the last name. I did not care. We all sat down. The court reporter swore me in. Richard started asking questions. Basic stuff at first. My name, my address, my employment history, how long I worked at Miller & Sons. Then he moved to the tickets. Mr. Miller, on Friday, October 27th, did you purchase lottery tickets on behalf of Miller & Sons Construction? Yes. How many tickets did you purchase? I paused, looked at Sol. He nodded. 2. Richard raised an eyebrow. 2 tickets? Yes. 1 for the office pool, 1 for myself. And how did you pay for these tickets? The pool ticket was paid for with cash. $20. Collected from 4 employees. The second ticket I paid for with my debit card. $2. Richard made a note. And where are these tickets now? I left them in a folder on my desk at the office. So you do not have physical possession of either ticket? No. Richard smiled. He thought he had me. Mr. Miller, if you do not have the tickets, how can you prove you purchased a separate ticket? Sol stood up. I can answer that. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. He slid them across the table to Richard. Bank statements from Wells Fargo. Transaction history showing a $2 charge at 7-Eleven on October 27th at 5:42 p.m. Receipt from the Pennsylvania Lottery Commission showing that a ticket with the winning numbers was purchased at that time using a debit card registered to Roy Miller. And a signed affidavit from the cashier at the 7-Eleven confirming that 2 separate transactions occurred that evening. Richard's face went white. He flipped through the documents. His hands were shaking. Sol was not done. He turned to Frank. Mr. Miller, you claimed under oath that the winning ticket was purchased as part of the office pool. Is that correct? Frank looked at his lawyer. His lawyer nodded. Frank cleared his throat. Yes, that is correct. Sol smiled. And the office pool was funded with cash, correct? $20 collected from 4 employees? Yes. So the ticket purchased with cash should be the winning ticket, correct? Yes. Sol pulled out another document. This is a transaction record from 7-Eleven. At 5:40 p.m., a $20 cash transaction occurred. 10 lines, quick pick, random numbers. That ticket did not win. He slid the paper across the table. At 5:42 p.m., a separate transaction occurred. $2, debit card, specific numbers chosen by the purchaser. That ticket won. The room was silent. Richard was reading the documents, his face getting paler by the second. Frank was staring at the table. Sol leaned back in his chair. So, Mr. Miller, if the cash transaction produced a losing ticket and the card transaction produced a winning ticket, and the card belongs to my client, then the winning ticket belongs to my client. Would you agree? Richard stood up. We need a recess. Sol shrugged. Take all the time you need. They left the room. Frank and Richard. The door closed behind them. Sol looked at me. Congratulations, kid. You just won. I did not feel like I won. I felt numb. 10 minutes later, Richard came back without Frank. He sat down. He did not look at me. My client is willing to settle. He will relinquish all claims to the disputed ticket in exchange for your agreement not to pursue criminal charges for theft or fraud. Sol looked at me. It is your call. I thought about it. About Frank. About the last 5 years. About my dad. I nodded. Deal. The paperwork took another week. Lawyers and signatures and notaries. But by the end of November, I had the check. $480 million. After taxes, it was closer to $290 million. Still more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. Sarah and I did not go crazy. We did not buy a mansion or a yacht or a private jet. We paid off the house, fixed the basement, bought a new car, not a Ferrari, a Ford F-150, reliable, practical, and then I did something I had been thinking about since the day I got the check. I bought Miller and Sons Construction. Frank had put up for sale. The legal fees and the bad press had destroyed the company. Nobody wanted to work with a firm that tried to steal a lottery ticket from one of its own employees. I got it for a fraction of what it was worth. The first thing I did was fire Rick and Todd, politely, professionally, with 2 weeks severance each. The second thing I did was hire back Karen and the field guys who had been laid off. The third thing I did was stand outside the building with a scraper and a ladder. The sign out front still said Miller and Sons Construction. But then Sons part was just a decal added sometime after my dad died. I peeled it off. Underneath, faded but still legible, were the original words, Miller Brothers. I stood there for a long time, looking at it. My dad built this place with his hands, with his brain, with his heart, and now it was mine. Not because I stole it, not because I cheated, because I fought for it. Sarah came up behind me. She put her hand on my shoulder. He would be proud of you. I nodded. I hope so. That night, I sat in the office. My office now. The same desk I had used for 5 years. The same water stain on the ceiling. I pulled out the photo from the lobby, the one of my dad and Frank. I looked at it for a long time. Then I took a marker and carefully, neatly, drew a line through Frank's face. Not out of anger, not out of hate, just to remember. To remember that blood does not always mean loyalty. That family does not always mean trust. And that sometimes the people who should have your back are the ones holding the knife. I put the photo back on the wall. Then I grabbed my keys, locked the office, and walked out into the cold November night. The F-150 was parked in the same spot my camera used to sit. I climbed in. The engine started on the first try. Sarah was waiting for me at home. We were going to order pizza, watch a movie, maybe talk about what we wanted to do with the rest of our lives now that we did not have to worry about money. I pulled out of the parking lot and headed toward Roosevelt Boulevard. The streets were quiet. The city lights flickered in the distance. And for the first time in 5 years, I felt like I could breathe,